Welcome to Talk of the Bay. I'm Christine Barrington. Tonight we explore a controversial new proposal to install 22 high-speed license plate image capture cameras at busy intersections in the city of Santa Cruz. These are commonly known as ALPRs, automated license plate readers, and these high-speed cameras capture license plate numbers of every vehicle that passes through the intersection. It uploads the time, date, and locations of the plates to large, searchable databases owned and operated by private companies that are not transparent or accountable to the public or elected officials. The proposal has been placed on the consent agenda of the Santa Cruz City Council for a vote tomorrow night. That's Tuesday, November 28th. My guest tonight is Peter Gelblum, chair of the Santa Cruz chapter of the ACLU, which has filed an urgent request to delay the vote in order to allow more time for public input and thoughtful discussion about this potentially invasive and costly technology. So, Peter, welcome to Talk of the Bay. You there?
Thank you, Christine. I'm here.
All right. So, Peter, tell us, why has the ACLU filed this letter with the Santa Cruz City Council requesting more time?
Well, we requested more time because we didn't have enough time. The public didn't know about this until it came out on the agenda for the City Council meeting on Thursday, this past Thursday, 3 days ago. I happened to find out about it because Chief Escalante was good enough to ask me just about 10 days before that to comment on the policy that he was proposing. And I did that, and I also told him, made very clear to him that we were going to oppose the entire acquisition of all of the ALPRs. If people go on to the City Council agenda, and what I'd like everybody to do, before I go any further, the City Council meeting tomorrow is at in the day, during the daytime, not at night. This item will be pulled from the consent agenda, and we expect it to come up between 1 and 2 p.m., but you never know what time it's going to come up. So if people can sign on to the council meeting either by Zoom or by phone and speak to the council live, that would be great. If you can't spend the afternoon waiting for this item to come up, then please write an email tonight or tomorrow morning before the meeting happens, registering your thoughts and concerns and opposition to this purchase of the ALPRs. Christine, can you hear me?
I can hear you. And so just to be clear, so people, if they want to be at the City Council meeting, they can't go live. They have to do it via Zoom?
No, it's live in the City Council chambers and live and on Zoom.
And
both.
on Zoom.
If you search for Santa Cruz City Council meetings on the internet, you'll find all the information you need about attending or calling in or writing in.
Excellent.
Everything's there, the emails and everything.
Okay.
So our primary request is just to deny the application by the Santa Cruz Police Department. And I asked at a very minimum to delay this so the public has a chance to digest all this information and to give their input. Some people may like it, they can give their input, but they need to give their input. This is an extraordinarily dangerous invasion of privacy. And the thing that makes it particularly bad, your introduction summarized what these things do very well. There's no reason for this. If there was some crime wave going on here and we had to do everything we could to try to stop it, that's one thing. But there's no need for this. The only need for this is that the police department likes to gather as much information about the public as they can. And, of course, 99.9%, probably 99.999% of the license plates that are captured by these things are of innocent people. People have no reason to get their movements tracked, and that's what these things do. They track everybody's movements.
Yeah, and
24/7.
Let's break this down a little bit for our listeners, because as I did some research for the show, it became more and more distressing to really kind of learn about how once a police department has installed these cameras, even though there are a lot of great laws in California to protect our privacy. It doesn't mean that they get adhered to. And so let's take it step by step and help our listeners understand 22 different high-speed cameras at different intersections in the city, just constantly capturing all of our movement. How can that data get misused?
Well, the data gets uploaded, and then I just want to interrupt for 1 second, Christine.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right what you're saying. The information about the 22 machines came from my email exchange with Chief Escalante.
Mm-hmm.
What's on for tomorrow is just 14 to be purchased, just 14 to be purchased with the Homeland Security grant.
Mm-hmm.
He told me that he wanted to do 8 more from his regular budget. So that's 22. So I just didn't want people to be confused.
Right.
If they sign on.
Got it. Okay, so let's just say 18.
Right.
Yeah, 18 cameras that Chief Escalante is hoping to get grant money for, and it would pay for those cameras initially, but not for the long haul. So we also want Santa Cruzans to understand that if this proposal gets accepted, there would be money initially, but in the long run, it would be city taxpayers paying for these cameras, and they're not cheap. So we also want to get...
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. The grant that he's looking for, that he wants the city council to approve, is for 2 years, to rent and operate these cameras for 2 years. But there's nothing after that, though, and these are going to cost at least $66,000 a year just to continue renting.
And it's not like Santa Cruz is rolling in money, right? In budget.
I think the last I heard, they may have declared an emergency, a fiscal emergency because there's so little money. They're desperate for money. They're cutting all sorts of services. This is such a waste of money. But for me, Christine, it's the combination of the cost, the terrible invasion of privacy, with the absolute lack of necessity or benefit from these things. There's been an ALPR in Beach Flats for about 2 years now. And I asked Chief Escalante specifically in my email exchange, do you have any data at all to show that these have resulted in any kind of crime stopping, conviction, stops, anything? And he told me he had no data whatsoever. There is no evidence at all, and Chief Escalante will not be able to present any, that these cameras improve public safety.
Yeah, and
so
I also
do it. And
and also in this letter that you submitted to the city, it's quite long and detailed. And one thing that you mentioned is that our county sheriff, Sheriff Hart, absolutely does not want these cameras installed, doesn't believe they're beneficial. Is that correct? That's correct.
That he has told that to me in the past. They do not have any. But let me expand on that a little bit, because what Sheriff Hart did do with ALPRs is a great example of how they might be able to be used in a beneficial way. This is a few years ago, there was a series of shootings at an apartment complex on Soquel, and Chief Hart talked to me and said, look, we want to borrow 2 ALPRs to put on Soquel, I think it was on Soquel Avenue, near this place, on either side of the place, to see if we can pick up some information about who may have been committing these shootings. There was a crime spree, so to speak, and he wanted to see if he could figure it out. They were there for 2 weeks, didn't pick anything up, and he took them away. Now that's, I could maybe even get behind that. That's for a specific thing.
Right.
Here, the SCPD wants to put them, and I don't think you said this, at every entrance to the city of Santa Cruz.
No, I didn't know
if
that.
If there are enough of them, at major intersections and on major avenues. Right. So he's not going to miss anybody. He's going to get everybody. And for no purpose, with no benefit, lots of cost, and lots of invasion of privacy. So what's the point? Where is this coming from?
Right, and this is what needs to be up for discussion, right? Is asking these important questions and hopefully getting appropriate answers.
That's right. That's right. And I just hope that the city council takes this seriously, looks at it carefully, and says, no, there's no need for that, and we don't have the money for it. You got a grant for 2 years. What's the point? And I have some reason to doubt that the money, the cost that the SCPD has put forward in their request to the City Council, because the City of Menlo Park just recently, this year, turned down a request by their police department for ALPRs, and their cost was more than double what the cost is that the SCPD is putting forward. So I'm not sure why there's such a difference. Maybe there were better cameras, I don't know. But they turned them down for some of the same reasons that we're discussing, the high cost and the lack of evidence that they help anything. That's, for me, that's enough reason, you know?
That's enough reason, and then the potential, and then the potential for abuse is huge. And this is something I really want listeners to understand. Like, my understanding is the ACLU actually sued the county of Marin for misusing these and ultimately tracking the movement of immigrants and sharing the data outside of the state and with other agencies, which my understanding is SB 34, California law, says you cannot do that, but they were doing that. And in Texas, also, these high-speed, license plate capture cameras have been used to track people who are trying to go out of state to get abortions. So it's really kind of frightening, this sort of 1984-esque situation that use of this kind of technology can and make us vulnerable to, correct?
Absolutely correct. Yes, and the only way, there is only one way to guarantee that the information will not be misused. That is to not gather the information. Once it's gathered, it's in the hands of this company called Flock Safety, which is this really scary company. They're nationwide. So once data gets into the Flock database, every single law enforcement agency in the country that subscribes to Flock, and it's thousands, has access to it. Everyone has access to it. There's all these safeguards built in, right? But people get around safeguards, and the information is there. It can be hacked. Several local police departments have recently had their information hacked,
and held for ransom, right?
And held for ransom, right?
It's crazy.
Well, once it's there, it's available to people, and there is no safeguard. There is no way to completely safeguard the information. This information can be used whether sort of within the guidelines or not, or outside the guidelines, to show, like you said, somebody when they're going to get an abortion, where they go to worship, where they go to get medical care, where their friends live, everything about you. There was a screen grab I saw in the FAQs that the SCPD submitted to the City Council. And it's not just date, time, location. It also tells you how many times that car has been by that location in the last 24 hours. So it's really pretty scary and thorough surveillance that we don't need. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help public safety. That's going to be the pitch. Guarantee that's going to be the pitch tomorrow. Improve public safety. But I challenge the SCPD to come up with data to show that. I've done a bunch of research. There is no data anywhere in the world. There are places, I think it was Atlanta, where somebody did a study and said, well, after these were in, the crime rate dropped significantly. But there's no evidence to show it was because of the ALPRs. Crime rates were down all over Georgia at the time. All sorts of reasons, right? So, as I said, the only way to stop it is to not collect it. Beach Flats, I mentioned Beach Flats. I have one there. And not only did Chief Escalante have no data on anything, he told me not a single Santa Cruz crime was affected in any way, solved or nudged forward or anything by those Beach Flat cameras.
Well, let's take a moment
to
to reintroduce the show, because in case you've just tuned in, you are listening to KSQD, and this is Talk of the Bay, and my guest is Peter Gelblum, chair of the Santa Cruz chapter of the ACLU, because right now there is a proposal to install 22 high-speed license plate image capture cameras at busy intersections across the city of Santa Cruz. And the ACLU has urgently requested that the city council either reject this proposal or postpone it, because it's been kind of slipped in, right, Peter? It's been sort of slipped into the agenda. Only announced last Thursday.
Consent agenda, as if this wasn't a controversial thing on the consent agenda. It blows my mind that they tried to do it. That I don't know who prepares the agenda. I don't know if it was the city clerk, if it was the mayor, who decided to put this on consent agenda, but it's just outrageous that it was on the consent agenda.
Well, Peter, I listened to a podcast about these cameras on the Berkeley Technology Law Journal, and they had on Matt Cagle, the ACLU senior staff attorney, and he was describing, he was like, how this usually happens is they get grant money for terrorism, fighting terrorism, which is this grant, that our chief of police has referenced from Homeland Security. He's like, they get grants for terrorism, and then they kind of slip it into the agenda so that nobody notices. And I was like, wow, this sounds exactly like this situation. And and it may not. Well, anyway, it sounded so familiar. It kind of blew my mind. And boy, listening to that hour with Matt talking about why the ACLU vehemently opposes this technology was really eye-opening. So I'm really grateful that you have wanted to come on the show and invite anybody who has feelings and thoughts about this to either attend the city council meeting, which you were saying is tomorrow afternoon at City Hall, and you can do it live or via Zoom, or if you don't want to do either of those, your request was that folks write letters.
Yes, and it's item 15 on the consent agenda. So if you can write in, reference item 15 on the consent agenda, and they'll know immediately what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Do I have time for one more thought?
Yeah, you've got 5 minutes. Go for it.
Oh, great. Okay. There's a state law, and I don't know if it was Prop 34 or not, but it's in the Civil Code now, 1798.90.5, and it goes on from there, that requires that anybody acquiring or implementing ALPRs has to have certain policies, and they're called guidelines and procedures, set up to describe how they're going to handle the most basic important things. How long will the material be held? How do you ensure accuracy? What training is involved to use it? Crucial things. And I when I was having my email exchange with Chief Escalante, I said, look, these things need to be written before the council votes on this, because this is going to determine how these things are used. And he said, well, no, we're going to do it afterwards, once they're approved.
Right. We know how that works out.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, the council needs to know all the details about this before they decide whether to approve the purchase. Right? And it's an example. It's like putting on the consent agenda. Again, I don't know who did that, but it's like that. It's like, we don't really want to hear from the public, and that's the other thing. There was no public meeting. When they did the Beach Flats ALPR, they had a public meeting to discuss it and to get the community's input on it. There's been no public meeting about this whatsoever. There's been no, people can come to the council meeting or write to the council, but what's the timing? Today's Monday. The meeting's tomorrow, right? This thing came out Thursday. What was Thursday? I think it was Thanksgiving.
Oh,
what was Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
My goodness, yes.
Thanksgiving holiday. Who the hell's going to see it, right? People didn't see it. There's no way people paid attention to this thing over this holiday weekend. I'm vacationing and with my grandchild, and I've had to take a lot of hours away from that to write in and to work on this thing. It's just outrageous that it was done like this, and there's no need for it. Absolutely no need for this time pressure.
Now you
supposedly
you had written in this letter that Chief Escalante had said there is a time constraint regarding this grant, and
yes, because and it's in the request to the council that they need to send it to some, I don't know what it is, the body of five. I have no idea what that is, but they got to send that letter to them by December 31st, and then it goes to somebody else in January, February, and then the grant money comes like a year from now. Okay, but even assuming that they have to get this in by December 31st, they could put it off till the December 12th council meeting, 2 more weeks, let people have time to absorb this and write in. And if they don't get the grant, okay, they don't get this grant. The military and law enforcement agencies always have money available for surveillance. If they don't get this grant, they'll get another one. And I just keep coming back to it. They don't need these things, and they don't help public safety. So there is absolutely no reason for the council to approve these things tomorrow. There's lots of reasons to deny it, but if they're not ready to deny it, at least put it off for at least a couple weeks.
right.
To allow the public to have input on it.
Yeah, at the very least, it seems important just to be able to have a thoughtful discussion, to let it actually air in our local paper and other venues that distribute the news, so that people can try it on, think about it, and let their voices be heard, because these are their tax dollars. But more importantly, our privacy is just being assaulted on so many levels. And there's this phrase I think that Mark Zuckerberg coined, which was go fast and break things. And I think a little too much has been broken in our society. And I think, go slow and be thoughtful needs to be, the new mantra. There is no reason to rush this.
Well, especially when you're talking about mass surveillance and invasion of privacy with no public
Hey,
benefit.
Peter, we actually have somebody calling in. And I have no idea who it is, but let's take a minute to find out. Just a sec. Caller, are you there? You there? No? Let me see. You there? Caller on line 2?
I'm here.
Hi, who is this?
Hi, this is Herb in Aptos, and I've got a couple of comments about automated license plate readers.
All right, go ahead, Herb.
One is, I'm wondering, I realize they haven't been installed, and that's fortunate, but who will actually maintain them? Is it going to be a third-party company? And that's kind of scary if it is. And regardless, who will have access to the data? In some municipalities, the license plate information is routinely sold to other unaffiliated companies.
Yeah, it's all operated and controlled, if I may answer the question. It's all operated and controlled by this private company called Flock Safety that has sold these things to, I think, thousands of law enforcement agencies around the country. They maintain a database. That was one reason Chief Escalante said he didn't have any data, because he has to ask Flock for the data. The local police department doesn't even have the data.
Wow.
All they get is they submit what they call hot lists to Flock, which are stolen cars, people they're looking for, right? And those license plates get input into the system, and if that license plate passes one of these license plate readers, they get an immediate, like I think within seconds, a ding. Say, oh, that guy you're looking for, he just drove by, the intersection of 1 and 9. So, you got to find him. That's how it works.
Any comment, Herb?
Yeah, that's better than if they have the complete database at every police station. On the other hand, it doesn't tell me anything about what the company can do with the data beyond pinging the police to say, bad guy X is at intersection Y. So it's still
they have the data from every car that goes by. They have that in a huge database that can be searched, right?
Right, and can they sell it?
They are not supposed to sell it.
Right, they're not supposed to, but they can, and that was like that show I listened to with Matt Cagle. He was talking about that this information can get sold, and then who's supposed to monitor it when the law is broken? It falls to
Right.
watchdog agencies, citizens. Like it's pretty scary. You're right,
How are
Herb.
you going to find out about it, right?
Yeah.
You can't find out about it.
Yeah.
The law
Well, thanks.
prohibits the sharing of this data with any in California. The law prohibits the sharing of data with any out-of-state or federal agency. It's very clear, and yet the ACLU and Electronic Rights Foundation, Frontier Foundation, discovered that dozens of agencies were doing just that.
Incredible. So we're gonna need to wrap up. We've got like another minute left. Herb, any other comments as a concerned
That's
citizen?
it.
That was
I appreciate your addressing my comments.
Okay, thank you, Herb. Thanks for calling in.
My pleasure.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
So-
Peter. So thank you so much for taking the time during your holiday week to alert Santa Cruz citizens to this issue so that they can have a thoughtful debate. And again, your request is that folks pay attention to the fact that this is on the consent agenda at tomorrow's City Council meeting in the afternoon at City Hall.
It will be pulled off the consent agenda, so public comment will be available.
Okay, great. And 30 seconds, any last wrap-up comments?
No, I think you've given me the opportunity to say everything I wanted to say, and I really appreciate Herb's call. I hope Herb contacts the City Council. But this is potentially extremely serious invasion of our privacy rights, and we need to stop it and stop it now.
Well, I'll be paying attention to what happens tomorrow at City Council, and thank you so much for coming on Talk of the Bay.
Thanks for having me, Christine. I really appreciate it.
All right.